With services such as Steam and Xbox Live Arcade, indie titles are increasingly becoming more and more popular. Amnesia: The Dark Descent, Bastion, to name a couple, are proof that quality can come from a small amount of people. However, what can one person make? Cave Story was created entirely by Daisuke Amaya, also known as Pixel. While Nisalis and NIS America ported later versions of Cave Story to the Wii and 3DS, the one-man studio Pixel was its start, with the freeware version on PC. The version you're seeing here is Cave Story Plus, which is on Steam. Cave Story is a 2D platformer with RPG-like elements. With life capsules and missile upgrades, it's hard to not see the influence from nostalgic titles, such as Metroid and Castlevania. If you're familiar with those and enjoy them, you'll definitely like this. Cave Story features a robot named Quote who suffers with amnesia and is stranded on a floating island inhabited by rabid humanoids. When he becomes involved after running into a mad doctor named simply the Doctor... No, not that doctor. What? Are you crazy? Yeah, that's him. Quote is tasked to venture throughout the island to stop his plot to, you guessed it, take over the world.
Of course!
Speaking of rabbits, aren't they just adorable? The character roster for Cave Story is expansive and unique. While there's no voice acting, every character has a distinct personality. From Sue's determination and childlike behavior to Misery's attitude, everyone participates in their role in an interesting story. As far as the gameplay is concerned, it controls very tightly. Jumping's very responsive and smooth, but it can be hit or miss every now and then. I only say that because the deadliest thing I've encountered was the instant death spikes. I was able to play with the keyboard just fine, but I do recommend a controller. Cave Story's narrative progresses somewhat linearly, but the entire map is open to explore as long as you have the equipment to get there. It works very similarly to a Metroidvania title, such as Symphony of the Night. The floating island is broken up into different stages, which are actually quite large. You can use a map to find your way around, but having to access your inventory every time to get to it can be a little frustrating. But oh boy, let me tell you, the soundtrack for Cave Story is extremely good. Every stage has background music that fits very well, from the happy plains, mysterious desert, and even silence for a few dark rooms. Speaking of which, it's almost auditory whiplash from the happy Kirby-like music to silence and darkness. My personal favorite has to be this one, from Labyrinth W. You even have options for what version of the music you want to listen to. Every jump and blast sounds and looks great, especially when the screen is cluttered with enemies. The one thing that separates Cave Story from every other is its large arsenal. Every gun is upgraded by picking up golden triangles dropped by enemies, up to a maximum of level 3. Many of the said weapons have special attributes at specific levels. For example, the level 3 machine gun will allow you to hover in the air when you jump. However, you'll never get every item in a single playthrough. Cave Story features a branching story that's dependent on player choice. Luckily, none of those choices involve mass relays. I digress, but going through the story once will take about 4 to 5 hours, but other challenges can be unlocked and played afterwards. If you were lucky to snag Cave Story along with last year's Humble Bundle, this game is definitely one of the greater indie titles out there. If not, I'd definitely keep my eye on future bundles that feature Cave Story. You just might get a steal with a bunch of other great games at the same time. And overall, I definitely recommend this game to anyone who wants a game with an involving story, likable characters, as well as very nostalgic platforming gameplay. If you have the cash to shelf out, I definitely urge you to buy the game. It's definitely worth the price. If not, you can always just download the freeware version and try it out. You won't be disappointed.